thank you everybody for dialing in today. I hope you're all doing awfully well. I'm excited about delivering the second of two pieces around how to restore team momentum in 2021 and get you all set for 2022. I suppose in terms of developing the whole content here, it was really thinking about walking in the shoes of leaders. You know, because I'm a leader myself, I have people on the team, and I need to be very conscious of how I can ensure that they remain effective for the rest of 2021 and into 2022. So, you know, wow, it's been almost 18 months since we've had these unprecedented events, and it's been a real test for everyone. But there's no point in being pessimistic, because it probably wouldn't work anyway. But there are green shoots ahead, no questions about it. The vaccinations are well underway, and who knows, by the year end, all this tough challenge could well be a distant memory, who knows. So what I'm going to share with you today, folks, are 10 PG tips or pretty good tips, specifically for leaders on how to restore momentum for the rest of 21 and into 22. Do stay sharp, folks, because I've got a few little goodies that I'm going to give away today, depending on how quick people are out of the traps in answering one or two questions that we're going to have over the course of the next 30 minutes or so. Okay, and for those of you that aren't familiar with me and who I am and the company that I represent, it's Ronan, Kinahan, Vibe Training, and there's Vibe Presentations, and then there's Vibe Velocity, which is a third brand of ours. I'm looking after clients in about, myself anyway, account managing about 16 countries currently. And I was back in Australia there some time back. And by the way, for those of you that have small screens, that says departed Australia and not deported Australia, just for the record there. And this is, we've done, I think, about a dozen Lynch and Learn events for Iconic to now. And this is the last one for the moment. We hope to be doing some more perhaps in due course. But I always think it's a good idea to size the problem before you can have any chance of serving the solution. And in terms of the problem that leaders have currently, you know, God, it has been relentless, you know, stress, pressure, and some of your team may be feeling a little bit depleted perhaps, or a little bit devalued. And there's never been a tougher time for leaders or indeed for trading. You know, some industries obviously are affected more than others, but it's still a bit of a test. So the job of the leader really is to ensure that they maintain team momentum for the rest of 2021 and into 2022. So here comes the 10 tips, okay, PG tips, pretty good tips, specifically for leaders on how to restore momentum. And I'm going to start off with allowing leaders to kind of look in the mirror for themselves and have a sense of their mood and their mindset. Working from home for leaders is just as much a test as it is for their teams or indeed their employees. And it's very important indeed for leaders to nurture their positive vibe, and everything counts and everything communicates. Even if their own leadership or their own confidence is being a little bit depleted, and it happens to me as well, I always go back to that safe, trusted formula. It's called the pi s squared formula or method to maintain confidence and maybe give it a little bit of a boost here and there. And it's pi s squared. P stands for physical. Leaders should ensure they stay physically fit. You know, I went for a swim this morning and I could feel the energy just flooding back at around an hour, 2 hours later. So how are you physically keeping yourself in check? Are you going for regular walks? Are you going swimming? Are you climbing mountains? Are you doing yoga, playing golf? Whatever it is, and that's P. So that helps you with your confidence, because your confidence is contagious and it radiates to the rest of the team and they can see it and they can sense it. And if you're not looking and sounding confident, it's going to have an impact on your team. I in pi s squared sounds intellectual. Okay, so the very fact that you've dialed into this for the next 30 minutes or so means you're ramping up on your intellectual prowess. So that's good news. But you've got to keep bouncing the ball in that regard. So what other interventions or workshops or seminars are you attending over the next couple of months or so, just to keep that tank topped up? That's intellectual. Third one then is emotional. And emotional is just reward and recognition of yourself, ensuring that you're good to yourself and you don't give yourself such a hard time, and you talk to yourself rather than perhaps listen to yourself too often. So that's E for emotional. S stands for social. It is very isolating working on Zoom. God help us if it's all day or dialed in, it's a real test. And the final one then is spiritual, which is just being all you can be. So that's pi s squared. You tap into any of those components, and honestly, it really will help you with your confidence. Because what you say to yourself does affect your mood and does affect your behavior. So you've got to control that mental protein, folks. Even just dressing like the person you want to become or the company that you want to become, again, communicates a lot to your employees. And it's all about realities rather than perceptions, and reminds your staff as well as to how respected they are. So there's number one, nurture your positive vibe, leaders, folks. Just be sure that you tap into that. Number two is, again, on the intellectual side of things, to boost up on your confidence. Be sure to tap into our website. There's loads of resources in there, free. You can download little booklets on things like situational leadership and teams, and they're all free. Be sure to do that. We have a channel as well called Vibe Training Ireland. And in fact, we've pre-recorded a video of this piece, which I sent to Saoirse, which you could well be able to have a look at, as well as perhaps the recording that she's making of this particular piece. So do dial into resources and ramp up on that intellectual component, and look for opportunities to share it with your staff as well. So there's a number of different instruments that we're big fans of, and a lot of clients use it. Insights Colors is a great one because it's all about personalities, understanding people that are not quite like you, but who are still on the payroll, and your job as a leader or a manager is still to get a good return on the investment in that particular individual, even though they may be very different to you. But the trick with Insights Colors is to understand your own personality and the other personalities in the team. The smart leaders employ people that are just not like them, rather than what the trap that a lot of them fall into, which is employ people that are just like them. And the problem with that is when you've got a big problem in your hands, everyone's thinking the same way. So we've clients that use this instrument all the time, and they're constantly asking us for profiles, particularly for new employees, perhaps, to help them understand them better. And that's Insights Colors. Second great instrument is worth having a look at as well, folks. So we've used it for the last 15 years now, called Human Synergistics. And this is about effectiveness as distinct from personality. And this is a wonderful instrument, great for teams as well. I ran an event in Belfast about 3 weeks ago. There was a team of 8 people present, and this is the first time in 12, 16 months or so they've actually all been in the same room. And it was really helpful in terms of all of them individually and collectively just getting a kind of a blood sample as to how they're thinking and how they're acting. And we ran a simulation, which meant that they all had to work as a team to come up with the problem solution scenario. And we saw opportunities for them to up their game as well. So a wonderful instruments, Insights Colors and Human Synergistics. And the final one I'm going to share with you quickly is situational leadership. A great one for leaders because, and I'm going to share with you an article a little bit later on that only came out yesterday from the Future Forum people in the US of A, which spoke all about the essential nature that leaders have got to adapt going forward in terms of being able to attract and retain talent. Sit Lead's been around for about 50 years, but it's a wonderful instrument to give leaders different styles of leadership depending on the situation. Now, there's more information on those instruments, folks, of course, on the website and indeed on our Vibe channel, Vibe Training Ireland on YouTube. Okay, so number 3 is an interesting one to serve the solution. Number 3 of our 10 PG tips. And this is really around marketing and branding. Companies spend an enormous amount of money building their brand and their value proposition for their brand. And the tip here is to have a think about your brand's value proposition, and rather than have it externalized for the benefit of consumers and prospects and clients, internalize it so that the attributes are driven into the mindset and the mood set of the employees, sometimes called internal marketing. So for example, with our company, Vibe, it's value, innovation, blended learning, and easy to work with. So if you just take those 4 components and you internalize them, have our conversations with your team, like, how do you think you can add more value in August or in the final quarter or whatever it may be? Okay, so where are you going to be innovative now when it comes to these online meetings? Where are you going to be innovative in terms of looking at a different approach and so forth? And that's really internalizing your brand, because remember, your brand is not what you say, your brand is what you do. So just like Iconic saying, they're on the side of people that need to work remotely and so forth. Saoirse gave some very good angles and insights as to how they're internalizing that brand and externalizing it for customers. So the brand architecture that is there, of course, is always built from the inside out. And just look for those powerful, compelling attributes of the brand and almost let employees see themselves in the brand. And that'll help maintain efficiency and, with a bit of luck, effectiveness. All right. So let's have a look at one more, which is all coming from Lencioni's ideas around teamwork. And Lencioni, by the way, is a New York American author. There's a couple of books out, but one of his best is this one here, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. Superb book on how to make the most of your team. And he basically says that good teams tend to trust each other. They tend to feel that they're accountable and live accountability. They're also responsible for results. They're not short in terms of commitment, and they do engage in conflict, but it's constructive conflict. A good critical mind is always a good thing, not being oppositional, but being, challenging people on the way they're thinking or perhaps on the way they're acting. And that all helps in the positive ethos within team performance. And that's all good. Sometimes as well, to radiate positivity, it's a good idea to share what other departments in your company are doing. Okay, so guys and girls, have you seen what marketing are up to at the moment in terms of the research they've done on X, or have you seen, what the guys in the factory are doing now to improve efficiency on the production line and so forth? And it's all motivational and it all helps people feel part of the entity of the company, which may have been lost in the last 18 months or so. So that's all very important, folks, to radiate positivity and celebrate the small wins. Even if it's only just getting a cappuccino or sending Kit Kats out or whatever it may be, keep that positive vibe going and look at what's been achieved over the last month or the last week or the last quarter, and do provide incentives and bonuses. So important now, folks, particularly if we're at the stage now where you're talking about, all right, so people are coming back to the office, what's the best way to work this and so forth. Look at ways to keep staff incentivized and motivated. Frightening statistic coming from the US at the moment is that people are leaving their jobs. Almost 4 million people in the US have packed in their jobs and have taken a break from their career, perhaps, because could well have had a big nest egg, haven't been paid perhaps over the last period. And they're just saying, I don't find this job so fulfilling nowadays. So I'm going to take a break. I'm going to have a look and see what's in the market 12 months from now. And they could be very important people with a lot of talent that bring a lot to the table. So look at ways to incentivize them in short-term bonuses, whatever it may be, just to kind of keep them part of the fold. Okay, so that's number 4. And as I say, if you specifically on a team context, do check out that book, folks. And Lencioni, very, very good on teams. If you feel the team performance or mindset, mood set, it's not what it needs to be. All right, so we're almost halfway across the river, which is good news because we're almost on 1:45 now. So number 5, folks, is to stay in the present. Yeah, don't get too far ahead of yourself. Ensure that each team is clear, or each employee is clear on what they need to achieve over the next 24 hours or the next 48 hours or the next 7 days. But don't go probably beyond that unless you're putting things into the diary, which are things to really look forward to, let's say. Paint the future with, it's fine to do that with positive expectations and dream it with particular dates for the diary is always good news, always good news. But set actions and priorities for the next 24 hours is really what we're predominantly saying there in terms of number 5 there, staying in the present. Set priorities and actions for the next 24 hours. Okay, number 6. Walk in the shoes of your employees. Particularly at the time now where there's a lot of discussion and conversation going on in terms of hybrid working and going forward. And the trick is, as a leader, is to listen, listen, listen. Yeah, dial into the emotional side. Listen for what is not said from your employees in addition to what is said, because it's very hard to second guess your employees or indeed a collective mindset. And when you're not in the room, it's very hard to read the room when you're not in the room, and you're just relying on really what that black dot is telling you on your screen or on your camera or on your laptop. And it's not easy to judge exactly how people are really feeling. And the trick is to listen and listen hard, because great leaders truly and genuinely connect to each member of their team, and they value each employee's sense of importance. And that's all. Listening builds trust. Coming back to Lencioni, he said number 1 for good teams is trust, and listening builds trust. I mean, when you're listening to the music, probably the lyrics are secondary, so just like a song, the lyrics are secondary. So do listen long, listen hard, and listen for that emotional energy, and use probing questions like, okay, I hear what you're saying. Now, in what way do you mean that? Or going forward, what exactly is it you need? Again, powerful question from situational leadership is, what do you need? Tell me more about that. Yeah, and with Zoom, there's always a temptation just to kind of share a lot of the talk on your own side, but take a pause point, pull back, and ask individual team members and collective opinion on what they really think is the right way forward. That's how you'll retain talent, and that's how you'll keep people motivated. Just a simple term starting out. Okay, Dave, how's everything? Gene, how's everything? Paul, how's everything? 2 words, but it gives them a chance to really let off steam if that needs to be the case, or just to kind of share with you what's truly going on in their mindset and mood set. Okay, so that's number 6. Let's move to number 7 of Ronan's 7 PG tips, and this is it, all about Zoom fatigue. Unfortunately, folks, yeah, it's if you're online all day long, it's seriously energy sapping, and it's very hard to stay focused. So the smart companies nowadays are scheduling blocks of time for online requirements. So rather than saying to their employees, right, you've got to be a dial on, check in at 9 o'clock and stay live, and we look at all the Zoom calls that you've got scheduled in your calendar and all the rest. The smarter play nowadays is saying, okay, folks, look, our suggestion is you get in online and take care of Zoom calls and so forth for no more than 3-hour block or a 4-hour block within certain time zones that perhaps work for everybody. And adhere to that, and adhere to the timings within the Zoom calls and the agendas as well. How many of you, when you're doing a Zoom call meeting, are working from an agenda? When we're in offices and we're having a meeting, an agenda is basic. But on Zoom calls, we're inclined to let that go, which means we're on a digital medium for far too long. And it is draining, as we all know. We've all suffered from Zoom fatigue, and we know it's not what we want to do for the next 18 months. So it's up to leaders to kind of walk the talk with this regard and put the schedule in place in terms of, X amount of calls online for X duration with an objective or purpose in mind. And as the conversation develops on the Zoom calls, allow your team to breathe, if you like, and make contributions. Okay, so another part of serving the solution, here's our next tip here, and I use the term go figure. Now, what in God's name am I talking about there? Well, I think really the days of the bosses are gone. I think what employees are looking for now, particularly now, are coaches and not bosses. And a good coach is a really good listener, and it's two-way conversation. It is nowadays important as well to accept the fact that a lot of your employees have worked independently for the last 12 or 18 months, pretty much, outside of getting in on calls. So they're adults. You know, they've been able to stand on their own 2 feet. They've embraced the digital workshop or ways of working, and most have done a pretty good job on it, even though it's been a real test. So I think the smart play now is to, in terms of feed forward conversations, I think we need to be talking to our employees about, you know, things like, you know, in terms of training, what type of training would you be looking at doing over the next 6 months? Are you happy to do it online, or would you rather, as part of our agreement, that you're in the office, like the case with KPMG? KPMG have a model now, hybrid model, where it's 6 from 10. So they're saying to employees, well, we would like you to be in the office 6 days out of 10. And it's up to you when you do those 6 days. And I think that's a smart play, but it's not the case with all organizations. I know a company that has just said that, you know, we want you in 4 days a week. And that's the minimum acceptable going forward. You know, I think that's almost, to me, that's Stone Age thinking now. I think that what they've got to think about is, we want you in the office no more than 2 days a week, or no more than 3 days a week. TUI, the tourist travel company, only want their employees in the office 1 day a week. Yeah. So they're turning, you know, what could be a threat in terms of supervision into an opportunity. And they're treating their employees like adults who have really, by and large, performed extremely well under very challenging conditions, from their kitchen table, perhaps, or from their back bedroom. And you know, I think it's important to reward them and give them a chance to figure out problems for themselves, and think about what kind of training they might need going forward. Because that's another area probably that has gone down the slippery slope, is upgrading your knowledge and expertise. So ask them, you know, where there's been slippage in anything at all, and look at how they might like to top up the tank in that regard. Put together a training plan, or let them put together their own training plan. You know, you could see this as an opportunity to probably outlearn the competition, yeah, who may be investing nothing in terms of training. Because if employees are not growing anywhere, they're not going anywhere. So, you know, look at ways to develop a corporate university, even if a lot of it's online, and a learning culture. Be sure that's in there with your employees. Okay, number 9. Serve the solution, coach support. Yeah, we mentioned that earlier, how important that is. But it's all really about applying flexibility here, folks. Again, I'm going to share my screen with you shortly. In fact, I'll just see if I can share it with you now. Is this article here, just came out yesterday, how leaders can embrace flexible working models. And I'm happy to send you a copy of that article. If anyone wants it, send an email to ronan@vibetraining.ie. And it's just came out yesterday from some thought leaders in the States. And it's very, very clever in terms of how leaders need to work in a very different world in terms of the future. Let me come back to my screen here because I want to get back to those slides. Let's see, here are we? Stop share. Let me get those slides back up here. Okay, and we'll just put it back into slideshow here. Okay, so apply flexibility here. Make allowances, folks. You know, that's really the trick for leaders. And be kind and be sensitive and be flexible. The coach almost 24/7 is not a bad way to think and act. And be sure that, you know, you're dialing into authenticity and dialing into stability and security, because that's what your employees will appreciate. Brian Elliott, interesting comment from his article that I shared with you earlier. Let's have a read of this. Okay, so that's future thinking, that's progressive, that's constructive, and it's really a big requirement of leaders going forward, is to adapt what's been shared there. And indeed in that, because that came straight out of the article of Future Forum. And it was all contributions from senior executives in the top 500, Fortune 500 companies in the States. So as I say, if you want a copy of that article, just let me know, we'll send that to you. Okay, we're almost there. We're on the final one, in fact, of Ronan's top 10 tips. And it is all about going forward. It is all about antennas up. Stay aware of any insecurities that are there within your team, because some of them may be feeling a little bit insecure. They may have shortages in terms of cash. They may have shortages in terms of burnout. Could be an issue for them. Also as well, their physical health may not be great, or just the isolation factor may still be a bit of a test for them. So stay aware and dial into those. You know, in these challenging times, some people can walk in the rain and other people just get wet. And it's the job of the leader to be able to dial in and watch out and listen out for any of those particular challenges. Okay, so here's a nice little challenge for you. If you want to send me an email on what you think is the answer to that particular quote there, leadership is all about your ability to do what? I'm going to send you, if it's pretty bright and sharp, I'm going to send you one of these Learning Lab journals, folks, which has got all types of articles and insights on effective leadership going forward. And I'll put that in the post for anyone that sends me something that I think, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's pretty thought-provoking. I ran an event like this only 2 weeks back, and a very nice contribution from Iona, strangely enough, in Israel. She said that leadership was all about the ability to provide freedom and flexibility for employees to do their best work. I said, oh, that's thought-provoking. That's really good. And we popped one of those Learning Lab journals. She went for that color. That's very popular with the ladies, is that color. I have a navy blue one as well, if any of the guys prefer navy blue. But what you need to do to get one of those, of course, is just drop me a quick email with how you would finish that particular quote. How you would finish that quote. All right, so let's maybe finally dial into what Apple are doing, take a bite out of their ways of managing and retaining top talent. And this is how they go about it. Now, how do you perform and your company perform in terms of or in comparison to the Apple way? Do you live those particular values? Or are some of them less relevant through your lens right now? Maybe they should be relevant. Because a lot of employees are actively looking for opportunities. They say 56% of employees now are thinking of moving, and 43% are in the process of moving. So they're taking actions to get out of a particular company and get into another one. Yeah, and 56% are thinking about it. Okay? So if you're a leader, it's your job to be able to kind of retain your best talent. And if half of them are thinking of moving on, you know, how are you going to be able to manage that going forward? So it's a real test for leaders, no question about it. And maybe they can learn from some of the other companies out there. All right, so here's your quick final insight. Have a look at these 10 once again, folks, and stress test in terms of how you're applying them within your leadership role. How is your scaffolding shaping up in that regard? Okay, now we're almost out of time, so I'm going to give you a nice little quote myself. Yeah, the competition for talent in terms of attracting and retaining is game on, no question about it. Okay, so I think where brands and leaders hold their nerve, and in the times that we're in, they'll get an extra share of voice and perhaps even a competitive edge when the good times are back. And they are coming back, there's no question about it. Some industries have a long way to go. Others are riding along the crest of a wave. But wherever you are, remember that, you know, it's about maintaining momentum and keeping a mindset and a mood set that is constructive, it's engaging, and you're executing what is going to sustain you going forward. And be sure to celebrate the learning today, folks. I mean, I've shared it with you for about 30 minutes or so, some angles. So celebrate the fact that you took the time out to dial into this. And even if you've only taken one thing from today, I hope that's been helpful. And be sure to remain positive and, you know, don't get pessimistic, because it wouldn't work anyway. Saoirse wants to come in just a second, but here's some of the contacts for you, folks. If you want to get in touch with me directly, there's my mobile number. Call me direct, and do visit our website and indeed our learning channel as well. There's plenty of good videos up there, 5-7 minutes long, on things like situational leadership, human synergistics, etc.